The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein.
I'm meteorologist Riley O'Connor. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to have you here for another episode. We got some very interesting space weather to talk about. Not always that we get to say that. Riley, last night in Aurora, did you get to see it?
No, this was the night I went to bed at 8 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, so a little bit early for that.
Yeah.
But for anyone who's watching maybe on a replay or not live, it is November 12th. So last night, November 11th, we actually had some incredible images of an aurora. So that's going to be our first segment, Atmospheric Impacts. And check out some of the viewer photos. All right, so you have to be in a dark place. I tried to see this myself in downtown Sacramento. No dice.
Yeah.
All right, too much light pollution. But Susanville, pretty far to the north. Wow.
It's
even with clouds.
It's so gorgeous. It really is.
Lake of the Pines, Bill Del Bonta, another pretty dark place away from city lights. A lot of pinks there. And the top right from Pioneer, and that's actually a bit farther south of Sacramento, but in the foothills towards the Sierra, very dark from John. He gets clouds, he gets stars, and the aurora all in one photo.
That's cool.
How amazing. Groveland, Vicky Schultz captured that photo. The pink was vibrant. And it's not just on camera. Riley, people were telling me they were seeing this with the naked eye, too.
And that's really, that's really impressive, too, to think about that. Because a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but, we can say we're going to be able to see it, but it's really hard to see with the naked eye. You almost have to have a good lens, good camera to see this.
Right. And we were talking about this earlier, whether or not we've seen them before. And I mentioned to you that when I was living in Maine, that's where I was working before I got to Sacramento, I thought I was going to see auroras and moose all the time. Never saw either of them.
Didn't happen.
In Maine.
Struck out on that one.
Yeah, and you never seen them yourself.
I have not. It's on the bucket list, but so I even worked in Minnesota, far north, of course, in Iowa, and I swear every time this was going to happen, it was either cloudy, couldn't see it. So yeah, not yet.
It's like coronal mass ejections. What cause these? Flares from the sun. It's like they also cause clouds, right?
Yep.
That's what it feels like.
Right.
But it's not the case. I mean, I want to. You were so close in a northern area where you could see it. I was in a northern area. Never had the luck. You need luck for this. All right, so let's talk about exactly how these happen. A little bit of science to get into. Of course, this is Atmospheric Insight. So you get this charged electromagnetic pulse from the sun. Solar wind takes it to our Earth. And without the magnetic field, we wouldn't be here, right? That protects us from radiation. So that charged particles from the sun, they look for a weakness in the magnetic field and find them at the poles. That's why the northern lights, the southern lights, the northern and southern boreals. And when it interacts with molecules in our atmosphere, whether it's oxygen, nitrogen, it excites those particles, and that creates that fluorescent glow, that color. So last night we were looking at mostly reds, and that's in the top levels of our atmosphere, which is the most common one. And it was exciting oxygen molecules. That's the color we get to see. It's just like amazing to think about.
And I feel like you don't get to see that often. I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, Adam, but a lot of videos that I've seen typically are the green colors.
Oh, you see some green. Yeah, greens get a little bit lower in the atmosphere. So reds and greens are definitely the most common. And then I guess depending on, what you perceive, you can see pinks sometimes, but pinks are the rarest because they have to be the strongest outburst of charged particles to get all the way to the lower parts of the atmosphere. Yeah, reds and greens are definitely what I've seen most, and you get mixes of that too sometimes. Oh my gosh, I had some friends in Maine, still from where I worked, that posted pictures online. They got both of those colors. A friend in Salt Lake City, I texted him. I asked him if he's seen it, and he actually was on a plane over Colorado while it was happening.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
Okay, that's
so lucky.
Yeah, that's when your luck comes in.
And he got to see both those colors, the reds and the greens. And
that's cool.
When these things happen on such a large scale like this, it's hard not to think on a large scale how lucky we are to live not just on a planet that's habitable, but a planet that's so beautiful.
Right.
That creates dancing colors up in the sky. And for all we know, this is the only planet anywhere nearby
Right.
that does this.
Right.
For all we know, it's the only planet in the universe that does it. It's unlikely, but we haven't found anything to suggest otherwise.
Mhm.
So we're lucky to be here.
Yeah, it makes you, when you really dive in deep about it, you're like, wow, this really happens. And how lucky we are to have this.
Yeah, it's like that thought we have when we're kids at some point in our lives, thinking, wow, the universe is really big. Like, what's out there?
Yes.
What am I doing here? How am I here?
I know.
And then you can appreciate things like sunsets,
Yep.
sunrises, auroras,
Yep.
or just the fact that our sky isn't like dusty, reddish gray all the time like it is on Mars.
I know.
We have
Right.
a beautiful planet.
Absolutely cool. Unfortunately, I know that we have a chance to see it tonight, but I think we're going to be dealing with some cloud cover and some rain coming in.
It's crazy because it actually could be even stronger tonight. An aurora across the northern part of the United States, possible all the way down through Arkansas and Oklahoma, Tennessee, North Carolina, and here in Northern California. Like you mentioned, clouds.
Mother Nature has another thing, player coming in for us.
Man, another missed opportunity. But the clouds are a good thing, too, because it means there's rain coming, right? We can talk a little bit about that. We've got some time. There's a storm on the way. So we're looking at some heavy rain, probably into Thursday morning, so the commute looks a little bit ugly.
I know, yeah. I was telling my kids this morning. I was like, we're not biking tomorrow morning.
Oh, yeah. Tomorrow morning, Thursday morning is the day to try and get in the car if you can. Stay off the roads on bikes. It's going to be slippery, going to be nasty, windy, too. And we've got a tiny bit of snow in the forecast, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a large part of it.
The snow blowers are starting to come out saying like, hey, we're ready, the skiers and stuff. I'm like, this might not be the storm you want.
I know anyone who's skiing or snowboarding is like, okay, a couple days ago, it looked pretty good. Get a few inches of snow, and now it's like, oh, man, another dud. All right, so speaking of active weather, this week's Ask Adam is about hail and how it forms. Great question. Let's jump into it.
Welcome to another installment of Ask Adam. This week's question comes from a friend. Cora Thompson-Myers asks, what causes hail? Before we dive into this question, I want to clear up a common misconception that you might have. And it's an intuitive line of thought, so it's not really your fault. Hail is ice. Ice is cold. Winter is cold. So, hail happens in winter, right? Wrong. Hail tends to occur in summer because you need thunderstorms to produce it, and that's when they tend to occur. Now, the process of forming hail is actually pretty simple and straightforward. There are updrafts within each thunderstorm. So you take this frozen water droplet, bring it up, it collides with other pieces of water or ice, and it creates these layers. And that hailstone grows bigger and bigger until eventually it weighs too much for the updraft to support it, and it falls out of the cloud. And we actually know specific updraft speeds to produce different sizes of hail. If you get an updraft of around 50 miles per hour, that's quarter-sized hail. 70 miles per hour, now you're talking hen egg. And yes, that's how we measure it. The National Weather Service chose that. And you get 100 mile per hour updrafts, grapefruit-sized hail, and you have to hope that's something you never see. When it comes to hail sizes, once you get to quarter-sized hail, that's damage to shingles on a house, and that's what we consider severe. Golf ball-sized hail, major dents on cars, and no one hates that more than the owner of a car dealership. Baseball-sized hail will smash your windshield, and if you ever get to that grapefruit size, we're talking about holes in your house. Very few people get to see that. It is extremely rare. Great question from Cora. Thank you so much for asking it. I hope you always continue to ask questions and stay curious.
All right, pretty cool. Riley, how familiar are you with hen eggs?
It always baffles me when we have to say that, right? Because it's just something that you don't want to, you don't usually characterize that. But I was in a storm that was pretty close to that size, and I was tornado chasing, and this was years ago. And when you are in something like that, it is scary.
Yeah.
It really is scary.
Right. So your car, was it damaged?
The windshield's bashed. It wasn't my car. It was a van that we were driving.
Was it a rental? Did you get insurance?
Yeah. Oh, yes. You have to. But you have to, when you go through these, I mean, you have to factor how fast you're going too, with that. But when it just comes down, it's loud, it's scary, and it just does really bad damage. You don't want to be in a car when this is happening.
Interesting. I've never storm chased before.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinated by severe weather from afar, but I don't necessarily want to be near a tornado or weather that could potentially harm me. I want to learn more about your storm chasing history. So we'll have to do that in another episode of Atmospheric Insight.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have some stories to tell.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Cool. All right. That will lead us to our first break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. We were just talking about hail and severe weather, how Riley has been storm chasing and also unwillingly caught in hail.
Yeah.
Myself as well. That's a story for another time. But Riley, you've got another interesting kind of aspect of weather that you're looking at in this week's Everyday Atmosphere story, right?
Yeah, talk to a horticulturist about how to prepare your plants for the winter and the change of seasons. I'm not one that has a green thumb, but it's interesting to hear, the preparations that you have to take with plants and, even if they're outdoor citrus plants, on how to do it, because we're in that time period where we get rain, we get some snow in the higher terrain. Also, we have fluctuation of temperatures where you're getting in the 40s at night. Yeah. And so some of these plants need to be protected.
This is really valuable to know, even if you're not big into gardening. Maybe you have a couple plants that you love, you want to keep alive, right? This could help them out. And a reminder for everyone, every winter, I think except for maybe 1 or 2 on record, we get down to the freezing mark, 32 degrees or below in Sacramento.
Yeah.
So this is good to know because freezes do come our way.
Yeah.
All right, Riley, let's see.
All right, thanks for joining us today on Atmospheric Insight. Today I have Derek Carwood, who is a horticulturist here in the Sacramento area, and we're going to talk about plants and weather. Derek, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about a couple things. We're transitioning into fall and the winter season, and a lot of people have plants. They have gardens. They have plants on their porch. Let's talk about important steps to homeowners of what they should take to prepare their gardens and their plants for the change in the seasons.
Yeah, so the biggest thing right now, especially with plants outside, is because it is going to be cooling down and plants are going to be less active and they're not growing as much. The biggest thing is to make sure that you're no longer feeding. You no longer want to be giving them fertilizer. You want them to go into a kind of a rest period. And so if you're forcing fertilizer on them, that's going to be feeding them. They're going to want to try to keep growing, which can produce some foliage and some new stems and whatnot that aren't going to be super well equipped to handle the cold weather. So number one is that. The other thing is we don't quite have the amount of rain to keep plants going over the winter. So don't turn off your sprinklers just yet. Keep things watered, keep things going. You don't want your plants to go into the winter starved for water.
And in talking about the water, isn't it important too to keep watering in the overnight hours in case we have frost, or how does that work?
Yeah, it can be. It depends on the plants. If we do have frost, especially with folks up in the foothills or in places where there is a little bit more risk of frost, you definitely want to be prepared. Bring any of your tropical plants, indoor plants back inside. They don't want to be anything under 50 degrees, basically. So anything below, if it starts dropping to the 40s, make sure you bring them inside. Anything that can handle it but doesn't necessarily like the frost all that much, you want to throw a frost cover over the top of them. And that will help protect them a little bit longer into the season as well.
So a lot of people in California, they have citrus trees in their yards, or they have succulents, potted plants that are indoor and outdoor. How do those differ, or how should you take care of those tropical plants and citrus plants versus regular household plants?
Yeah, so most of the citrus, especially in the valley or along the coast, most of the citrus are going to be fine. They're not going to have too much issue. If they're in a protected area in a backyard or on a porch or whatnot, usually they're okay. It's not usually a problem, but it is something to keep an eye on.
For gardeners who are looking ahead and they're, they have plants and vegetables that actually thrive when they plant it in the fall. How can that handle in winter conditions? How can they plan for the winter?
For sure. Yeah. So one of the great things about living in California is you can grow stuff year round. In Northern California, Southern California, Central, doesn't matter, right? So this time of the year, you want to start growing your brassicas. So any of the leafy greens, lettuces, broccoli, cauliflower, kohlrabi, cabbage, they're all related. They all do really well in the cooler temps. You can also start growing onions, carrots, garlic. All of those do really well as well. So radishes. So there are quite a few crops that you can continue to grow over the winter. They do grow slower in some cases, so it's not necessarily going to be, the same thing. But if you have tunnels that you can use to, keep things a little bit warmer, depending on your location, again, in the foothills, you're going to need a little more protection. But that's the great thing about living here in California is we have the ability to grow year round.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for that. That's great information.
Of course.
Yeah, I want to thank you for joining us today and all the advice. And I think people will take these tips and hopefully have a great growing season.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope they do. All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Derek.
Riley, great work.
Yeah.
That was very informative, very
Very cool.
interesting. And one of the things I didn't realize is like feeding the plants, right? They want to go into like a dormant phase, so you relax. We were just talking a little bit about how we both have plants. What's your favorite one that you have?
Yeah, so I have a braided ficus tree, fig tree, and I've had this since 2010. So it's been all over the country with me. I just don't. It's going to be with me forever.
Okay, so it's 15 years you've had this plant.
Yeah,
It's through a lot of life.
It has, and I think it would have thrived a lot better if we, lived out here in a warmer climate. Because living in the north and the cold, it did not like it at all. And I would have to bring it indoors during the winter, and it just didn't do well. It did not. It lose its leaves, and it was very, very. It looked fragile.
Fig plants, they are finicky. I mean, so many people take them home from stores when they're looking beautiful. They have those huge green glossy leaves. And then they all fall off. I've seen it happen. So I've stayed away from it. And yours is doing well right now?
Yes. Since we moved back to California, it's thriving. So I'm happy.
That is excellent. So for myself, I prefer the hardy plants that are like truly hard to kill. Like you have to really mess up. So I have a few variation of cacti. I've got succulents and a snake plant that has been unbelievable.
A snake plant?
Yeah. Are you familiar with these?
No, I'm not actually.
So they're also called mother-in-law tongue. I think it was like a weird name for
I'm going to have to Google this if I.
But yeah, they have these long leaves that stretch upward.
Okay.
Anyway, I had this thing, and in like 2 years, it looked like it was 20 years old. This thing's like 6 feet tall.
Wow.
And I don't know what I did to make it that way. People have asked, like, how is that possible? I don't know. It's just healthy. I like Sacramento sunshine, but not too much.
Yeah.
I've accidentally burnt it before, but it came back.
Okay.
And yeah, all the other cacti, I don't really have to worry about them.
Yeah.
I water them once in a while in the summer. They're fine. And in the winter, you hope for some rain. And yeah, they get some water there.
Yeah.
I will say that I tried to grow tomatoes once. I didn't realize how hot the sun was. People here, they have to like put them up in shade or put a shade cover over them, like a cloth.
What kind of tomatoes did you grow? Do you remember?
Regular red ones.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't anything interesting, but it got fried. It got absolutely fried. So I didn't get much of a harvest out of that. I've never really been one for growing vegetables or anything you can consume. How about you? Anything?
I the thing is, I want to learn gardening a lot more. I mean, I've tried many things, but they're very basic. Tomatoes, yes. Strawberries, tried. Pumpkins, I've tried. Had a few good years with pumpkins. Not the best, but still, I enjoy it. I just wish I spent more time learning it. So this is maybe on my bucket list to do.
Got a great contact there. It seems like he can help you out.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much, Riley. Great story. All right. Coming up, we're going to hear from Genevieve Melzer about hairstyles and how weather plays a role in what season you get what hairstyle. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. Hairstyles, Riley. Does yours change seasonally?
I did. I will say this. I grew it out a few years ago just for fun.
How long?
It was pretty long. I got a perm.
Oh,
I did a perm. My kids were like, "What did you do to yourself?" Didn't last too long, but I tried it. I would say I pretty much have the same hairstyle like this all year round. Yeah,
me too. A little interesting tidbit that my friends find funny about working in news. In our contracts, there's a clause about not dramatically changing your appearance without approval of your manager. So I cannot come in with blonde hair one day. I can't come in with a buzz cut. I can't come in with a face piercing or something like that.
Surprise, everybody.
Yeah, right. No big surprise like that. All right, let's hear from Genevieve Melzer about how professional as weather impact her business in the salon.
When it comes to hair, the weather can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Heat, humidity, and wind, they all play a role. But I'm here at 1970 Salon to sit down with my hairstylist, Suzanne, to find out if people's hairstyle changes from season to season. Let's go. How much does weather play a role in your day-to-day as a stylist?
Weather plays a role. I feel like the sunnier it is, then the brighter people want to be as far as hair goes. And then usually as it starts to get a little more overcast, things change a little bit as far as wanting to go darker.
Do you notice hair care trends change depending on the seasons?
In the summertime, I feel like your hair can tend to be a little bit more dry as far as depending on if you're in swimming pools or just in any body of water. So you obviously want to add more moisture to your hair during the summer, a lot more protection. And then in the winter, I feel like that is when you need to focus more on your scalp health. People tend to get a little bit drier scalps in the winter, a little bit itchy. So you want to add a good like scalp care treatment, like a nice little scrub, maybe some oil.
And do people change their color and cuts based on the seasons?
But yes, people change their color definitely. I feel like it's always been a little bit of a trend to change it seasonally, lighter in the summer months, darker in the winter. I do feel like people are shying away from that a little bit. The rules are you can do whatever you want. Bangs, I feel like, are more common in the winter. A lot of people don't want to sweat with their bangs in the summer. As far as lengths go, that I don't think there's really any specific rule as far as that goes. I feel like you can have a bob any time of the year.
Do clients change their style plans based on the forecast?
Depending on the weather outside, if it's really just a really ugly stormy day, a lot of times clients will tell you don't do anything too big. It'll get ruined very quickly unless they have something in particular that they're going to that they need their hair styled for. Usually it's like the more simple kind of blowouts. And then I feel like the summertime it doesn't really matter unless it's dreadfully hot and you plan on getting really sweaty afterward.
Does humidity affect your styling, especially for big events like wedding and prom?
Yes. Humidity definitely plays a big role in having styles, like updo styles or anything like that. Usually for weddings or proms, if you are going to be out in an area where it's really humid, you usually would want to wear your hair up if that's a big concern for you, because if your hair is down, the more you're in the humidity, the larger it will get, more frizzy it will get, things like that. Or just take like extra caution with product use and things like that to kind of keep it in place.
What products do you use for that?
You would definitely want to use like an anti-humidity, anti-frizz product, a nice like styling cream, something that's really going to add a layer of hold to the hair.
Do you see fewer appointments during certain weather conditions, such as storms or extreme heat?
Heat doesn't usually play a factor, but it's mostly in storms. Yes, storms for sure, depending on the conditions of the road. I think there's actually been quite a few times during my career where I've had clients the morning of call to reschedule or cancel because they didn't want to drive like a far distance to get here in the condition, which is totally fine. I don't want to drive to work in those conditions either.
What's one weather-related hair myth you would like to bust?
I don't know if this is really a myth, but like I said earlier, how people feel like they have to have their hair color dependent on the season. I feel like you do what you want to do. I don't think either, like I said, there's no rules. You can have platinum blonde hair in the middle of winter and vice versa.
Whether it's a hot summer day or we're in the middle of a rainstorm, good hair doesn't happen by accident. With the right products, prep, and magic from your stylist, your hair can survive any weather forecast we got. And when it comes to color and style, forget the seasons. Do what you want. Now back to you guys in the studio.
Genevieve, that was wonderful. But I will say, I think my hair does happen by accident. I don't know what it is. Every day it's like a little bit different.
Yeah.
And it's just...
You're like, it's not cooperating today.
That's it. I'm coming into work. I don't know. But a lot of what we just heard, it makes a lot of intuitive sense, right?
It does. And interesting, I relate to a lot of this because my mom does hair for a living. And so I grew up in this. And so when she would have customers come in, she would talk about that. Or if the weather played a role, customers would cancel and she'd have to reschedule. So it was interesting hearing all of that stuff and tidbits. And also having a daughter too. My son is kind of the one, he just throws his hair back and just combs it over. But my daughter, it's longer hair. And I've learned some good tips today about that.
Really good tips. I also thought it was like interesting, bangs during the summer.
Yeah.
maybe not, because you don't want a hot forehead. That was how I took it. But
Yeah.
that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I like that angle.
And I always thought too, like it was interesting about the seasons and just do what you want to do. I always typically thought you would go darker during the fall and winter, and lighter, blonder in the summer, I guess.
Right, and that's what you said. That's the trend, right? The brighter it is outside, the brighter the hair. Trends with the seasons.
Yeah.
Another interesting aspect of how weather impacts an industry. Thank you very much, John V. Melzer, for that report. All right, that wraps up another episode of Atmospheric Insight. Riley, thank you. And thank you everyone at home for joining us. We'll see you again next week.